Welcome back. Today we're diving into something absolutely fascinating, a profound, first-person spiritual text that fundamentally subverts human expectations. Whether you approach this from a philosophical, psychological, or historical perspective, it's a total masterclass in challenging how we view power and society. Now, we aren't here to debate theology today. Instead, we're going to unpack these ideas impartially and see exactly how this text deconstructs our usual ways of thinking. Let's get right into it.
To keep things clear, we've broken this explainer into 5 parts. 1. Beyond the eyes of flesh. 2. The nature of the kingdom. 3. Knowledge, pride, and fear. 4. The danger of dominion. And 5. The call to love.
Part 1. Beyond the eyes of flesh, shifting our spiritual vision.
Right out of the gate, the text hits us with this incredibly powerful premise, establishing a strict, unyielding dichotomy between the physical and the spiritual realms. The speaker tells the audience, "You still see the world with eyes of flesh, but I call you to see it with eyes of the spirit." I mean, talk about a massive paradigm shift, right? It asserts that relying solely on physical evidence, just what we can see and touch, is fundamentally inadequate. In our modern world, where we are absolutely obsessed with data and tangible proof, this is a huge request. It's challenging the reader to recognize that reality is far larger than mere physical existence. The source even goes on to declare that its work didn't end with physical death, because in its own words, life cannot be imprisoned. It's asking us to stop mourning physical endings and start recognizing ongoing spiritual realities.
Moving to Part 2, the nature of the kingdom, redefining divine power.
Now this is where it gets really interesting, because the text completely dismantles our standard human constructs of power and geopolitics. Think about it. When we hear the word kingdom, we inherently think of borders, armies, and capital cities. But look at this definition derived straight from the source. It says, the kingdom is not an empire of stones or swords. It's a state that begins where a heart surrenders. This is a massive subversion. The text takes the whole concept of divine authority, moves it entirely away from some external, physical location that you can conquer or defend, and relocates it into the internal, transformative space of the human heart.
And the contrast it provides here is just brilliant. It directly addresses this huge gap between human expectations and spiritual realities. On one hand, you have what the audience in the text imagined: thrones, cities, physical power. They were looking for a literal political revolution. But on the other hand, we have what the text insists divine authority actually requires: a surrendered heart, abandoning pride, and learning to love. The source explicitly states that you don't just look for this reality above the clouds, you have to look inside yourself. It even notes that many people will see physical miracles and still remain blind, while those who simply learn to listen will find life. It's a complete reversal of what constitutes real power.
Which brings us to Part 3, knowledge, pride, and fear, identifying the true enemy.
The psychological insights here regarding the dangers of human intellect are phenomenal. The text basically splits knowledge into 2 distinct categories. True knowledge, according to this philosophy, isn't just about understanding the world. It's about understanding yourself. When you truly know yourself, it produces humility, because you instantly recognize your own limitations and your need for the divine. But then you have false knowledge. This is intellect completely unchecked by self-awareness. The text issues a stark warning here. Do not let knowledge produce pride, and absolutely do not let it replace love. Pursuing truth without humility is framed as intellectually and spiritually destructive.
So I want you to really think about this next question as we analyze the text's psychological framework. According to this text, what is humanity's absolute greatest enemy? If we're talking about a spiritual text dealing with the afterlife, you'd probably expect the answer to be sin, or the devil, or even death itself.
Actually, scratch that. It's not death. It is fear. That is such a profound philosophical stance. The text argues that fear is the ultimate paralyzer. It imprisons the mind, it hinders faith, it silences the truth, and it makes people abandon their path long before reaching their destination. Think about how often that rings true in our own lives. How many decisions are driven entirely by a fear of rejection or failure? Death is framed as just a mere physical transition, a temporary state. But fear is the active force that ruins the human experience while you are still alive. The text commands its followers not to fear suffering or rejection, framing those things not as abandonment but as the very process of being perfected.
Okay, Part 4, the danger of dominion, the subversion of authority.
If there is one core ethical tenet that summarizes the text's view on leadership, it boils down to this: the greatest is the one who serves. The source material strictly forbids its followers from disputing who is the greatest among them, arguing that true leadership requires radical humility. It specifically uses the metaphor of washing the feet of your brothers. Now, in the historical context of this narrative, foot washing was literally the task of the lowest servant in the house. By elevating this specific act to the ultimate sign of a leader, the text completely inverts the human social hierarchy.
Let's be honest for a second. Humanity loves creating a good, complicated rule book. We multiply laws, create bureaucratic burdens, and love building massive empires. The text explicitly warns against this human instinct for governance, noting that we already know how to create heavy burdens for ourselves. It warns against turning its message into just another instrument of dominion. The spiritual way, on the flip side, is all about delivering freedom. It grows silently, like a seed in the ground. The source points out this tragic irony that many will try to build massive empires in the teacher's name, while the teacher is really just looking for servants. It insists that love fulfills the law naturally, without needing endless, restrictive rules.
And this subversion of authority extends to how we fight evil and ignorance too. Humans typically combat darkness with violence, right? We use force to impose what we believe is right. But the spiritual way described here is entirely different. You use light and truth. The text states that truth dissipates shadows naturally, exactly the way that dawn inevitably defeats the night. You don't have to fight the darkness with a sword, you literally just have to turn on the light. It's a beautiful philosophy of overwhelming peace and inevitable truth.
Finally, Part 5. The Call to Love, the Ultimate Imperative.
As the source material wraps up, it builds this incredible momentum with a rapid-fire sequence of ethical imperatives. It commands forgive exactly as you've been forgiven, love in the exact same way you were loved, serve as I served. It urgently warns, do not let fear silence your voice, and do not let pride divide your community. These commands encapsulate the entire ethical core of the text. At this point, it's not about complex theology at all. It's about direct, reciprocal action. You must output into the world exactly the grace and service you've received. Because at the end of the day, talk is cheap. To hammer this point home, the text explicitly tells its followers to announce a transformed life, not just words. It insists that the ultimate proof of this philosophy isn't found in a compelling speech or winning a debate, it's found in a transformed life. The source demands that people must recognize the truth of the message by observing how you actually live, not just by what you preach. It's a demand for absolute authenticity between what you believe and how you act on a random Tuesday afternoon.
As the text closes, it offers this powerful, impartial, theological guarantee to its followers. When it seems the darkness has won, remember the third day. Now, within the narrative, this is clearly a reference to the resurrection motif, but philosophically, it serves as the ultimate anchor for hope. It acknowledges that there will be times when the world hates you, when things don't make sense, and when it genuinely looks like the darkness has achieved total victory. But it asserts that suffering, rejection, and darkness are only temporary states. They absolutely are not the end of the story.
Which leaves us with this one final, incredibly profound thought derived from the source. The text confidently declares that death did not have the last word, sin did not have the last word, fear did not have the last word. So if none of those overwhelming human experiences have the final say, what does? According to this remarkable manuscript, the final word is eternal presence. It concludes with the promise, I am with you always. It leaves the reader with an open invitation to trust in a reality far greater than themselves. It's just a fascinating framework designed to challenge absolutely everything we assume about power, fear, and existence. Thanks so much for joining me to explore this incredible material, and I'll see you in the next explainer.